Welcome to the Facebook Live event of the century now. So I'm Tammy Rikard with Yuba Sutter Political Spotlight, and I'm here with Jake McAulay. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the Institute on the Constitution, which is the organization that publishes the Constitution curriculum that I use to teach Constitution courses here locally. And he takes this curriculum and this idea all over the country, trying to spur people's, trying to basically educate the people about what's in the Constitution, because apparently that's not commonly taught anymore. And so we kind of have to be creative and go, seek the information out on our own. So we're getting the word out and trying to educate people. Jake happens to be in the area. He's from North Carolina, so he does a lot of travel and travels around the country quite a bit, and we're lucky to have him here right now. So we wanted to do a quick Facebook Live to let you folks know that at 7 o'clock, which is, I don't know, approximately 30 minutes from now, he's going to be doing a presentation here. We are at the Church of Glad Tidings on Eager Road in Yuba City. It's right off the freeway. You take the Eager exit and you'll be here, the Church of Glad Tidings. So tonight, the presentation he's going to be giving is called Out of the Salt Shaker. So I'm going to give Jake an opportunity to kind of talk about what that topic is going to be about tonight and give you a little preview of what the lecture is going to be about.
Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you, Tammy, for having me on the show, and thank you for all of you who are chiming in, listening in. Give us a few likes, would you? Give us a few hearts. Yes. We love that when you do that. Let us know that you're active, you're listening. It's so good to be here because oftentimes in my travels throughout the country, I come into areas, I come into schools and so on that are not very liberty-minded. As a matter of fact, they're kind of antagonistic toward the concept of Constitution to teach and educate Americans how to think American. And that's why our website is called theamericanview.com. On a weekly basis, I am a nationally syndicated columnist. I put out videos that are about 3 minutes long and write 400-word essays that talk about popular events of today, and I apply a biblical constitutional viewpoint to it so that people can understand what that even means in this culture today. The topic of tonight's discussion is called Out of the Salt Shaker. Jesus said, "You're the salt of the earth." That word, first of all, I love salt. I salt everything. My wife says, "Hey, that's too much salt." And I say, "Hey, Jesus said salt is good." So I use a lot of salt, pink Himalayan salt from Costco, by the way. But I got to shop at Costco. I have 4 children, and we homeschool them all, so we eat quite a bit. Anyhow, when you're in a salt shaker, it's a great place to be. People know where to access you, but your end goal is not to remain in the salt shaker. You've got to be out of the salt shaker, and you've got to season things. And so that's what we should be doing as constitutionally minded people. We should learn and study together, and then we should go out and make sure that we're the salt of the earth. It is the context that Jesus was talking about. Now, you just heard me mention Jesus a few times. Some people think, what, he's talking about the Constitution, and then what's with this Jesus stuff? Well, our country was literally founded on law, the rule of law, and also God-given rights. We have a concept that our founders used and quoted quite a bit, and it's in the Declaration of Independence, called the law of nature and nature's God. When we speak about nature's God, we're entitled to independence, is what our founders said, by the law of nature and nature's God. What is that? Well, the law of nature is something we can deduce by looking outside. You can deduce different scientific laws. You can deduce laws of private property even. If I run to Africa where they don't know the Constitution and I steal somebody's shovel, they're going to chase after me because of private property. That is something that God inherently put in us, our Creator. And our Creator endowed us with unalienable rights, life, liberty, property. And so when he did that, he had to protect those rights because he knew, because of our sinful nature, that we would try to take it. We would try to take people's life, liberty, or property if it benefited us more. We see that when you look throughout the past century, how many numerous dictatorships that literally stole from their own people life, liberty, and property. So our founding fathers, in constructing these documents, acknowledged these truths, this basic supposition, that there is a God, there's a Creator, and our Creator endowed us with rights. That is life, liberty, property. And if you want to trace that back, they took that out of Genesis chapter 1 when God created Adam and Eve. He said, "Be fruitful and multiply." So first he gave them life. Secondly, he gave them liberty. And then he said, subdue the land and take dominion. He gave them the right to property. So those first 3 rights come in the first book of the Bible. God, in order to protect those rights, gave law. You have the right to life, and God protected life by saying, thou shalt not kill. Pretty basic, really basic concept. You have the right to property, and God protected your property by saying, thou shalt not steal. So these principles all can fundamentally come back to the Bible. Our founding fathers were very smart men. They weren't smart because of their own intellect, even though they had a very large intellect. It was because they studied the Creator. And that is the only way you can have security of rights in America or anywhere else where you're embarking on the adventure of liberty, is by studying what the Creator has said about liberty, studying about the laws that our Creator set in place and set in motion, studying about the jurisdiction of government, which God speaks about consistently through both the Old and New Testament. When we stick to those principles, which is what we desire to teach, which is what you are teaching, it's what you're talking about on the radio on a regular basis, that's where liberty is. It says in the Bible, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. We can find a free flow of God-given rights when we stay within the confines of God's law. This is an interesting concept. Remember in the old Western films, Tammy, when you would have the lawbreaker, the lawless guy, he would come into town, fire his guns, and steal stuff. What was the phrase we would call that type of person?
He was an outlaw.
He was an outlaw. Exactly. He went outside of the law. So now he was no longer protected by the law. He was actually persecuted by the law, and the sheriff would grab his posse and they would chase the outlaw. It's the same concept here. What is the source of law? Well, what is the source of rights? God. It says in the Declaration of Independence, there's a Creator God. He created us with unalienable rights. And the purpose of civil government is to protect our rights. How do they do it? By upholding the law. Where does the law come from? From our Creator. And so, if government decides one day to go outside of the law, break the law, and instead of securing your rights, take your rights, they've actually, in fact, become criminals. As a matter of fact, the largest travesties and crimes perpetuated on people have always been by their own governments. It's never been a mob. It's never been a gang. You don't have to be scared of the gangs that exist out of there. The biggest organized criminal could potentially be government. I do not believe that is the case in America, but I believe it can become the case if people do not learn the materials like the Constitution and read their Bibles and understand this concept. Thomas Jefferson said, the biggest enemy to people's freedoms is criminals and government. It's a bold statement. He said, let's tie the ladder down with the chains of the Constitution. Let's tie government down with the chains of the Constitution. Let's restrict them. Let's constrict them. Let's not even let them look at us sideways. He said, unless they become a legalized version of the first criminals with a badge. We don't want to see America come to that point. We know that because people are sinful and people populate government, that there's times where our liberties are denied us. Some of us experience it on a minor level. And I think, Tammy, your efforts, my efforts, I am trying to make sure it doesn't happen on a larger level. And the only way to do that is to work to educate. I love government. I love our system of government, our form of government. I just want to make sure that our government stays within those confines. And you know what? Those serving in office that actually love people, that love liberty, they appreciate that.
Yeah.
They want us educating. They love what we're doing. And there's a lot of pastors that are out there, like Pastor Dave Bryan here at the Church of Glad Tidings. He's a supporter of our ministry. He has me come in from time to time. He's not afraid to talk about it. Guys, if Christians don't speak about these concepts, we're the ones that should understand this the best, not the Republican Party. It's Christians read their Bible because the source of our rights is God, and the source of law is God. So if we go silent on this, then a new God comes onto the scene, which I'm going to talk about tonight. That new God ultimately becomes government.
Right.
We look to them from cradle to grave for all of our health, education, and welfare. That's idolatry. Because now we've replaced the role of God in society with government. And guess what? Government will assume that role if we give them that authority. And when they do, we're not going to like the outcome. Consequence is going to be big. Because then it's just a matter of who's in power, who becomes God in your life. you're going to be forced in some way, shape, or form to worship that system, whether you like it or not. And if they get off the rails, it doesn't matter because they have authority and power and guns. And so, anyhow, so these concepts are what we're going to be discussing tonight. Ultimately, I'm a preacher of the gospel. I desire to see men made right with their God, because I think that far exceeds the Constitution. It far exceeds our founding fathers. The Constitution is not the Bible. The founding fathers are not Jesus. Heck, Ronald Reagan is not Jesus, for all you conservatives. And Barack Obama is certainly not Jesus, for those of you that have put your trust and faith in him. I want to see men reconciled to their God. It says in the book of Chronicles, the King Solomon, who was the most wealthy king that existed at that time, he was also an extremely wise person. God had came and visited Solomon, who was a young ruler, and he said, there is going to come a time in your land where the people forsake God. They pursue entertainment. I think we can see that in our culture. They pursue idolatry. They pursue adultery. They pursue industries, and I can name a few of them in America right now. They start to exchange what God said is truth for their own version of truth. They think that truth is objective, whatever, well, that kind of offends me. I don't think God's like that. We create our own gods in our culture. And God said, you will be judged ultimately at that time because you'll abandon me, which is like saying to the security guards out in front of the White House, hey guys, don't worry about it today. What do you think's going to happen? You're going to get attacked. What do you think's going to happen when we abandon God and his standards? We open ourselves for insecurity. Our rights become insecure. If that happens in your culture, God said, then there will be a phase where people fall away and they'll serve themselves. Then they'll be judged. Ultimately, you'll lose a lot of liberties. You'll lose a lot of those fundamental prosperity that God gives to your culture, the peace that God gives to your culture. He says at that point, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, will pray, will confess their sins, I will hear from heaven and I will heal their land. Guys, politics is not going to heal our land. It can't. There's no system of government. There's not enough money to heal the problems that we have right now in our culture. There's not enough money to heal the division between opposing viewpoints, philosophical, political, religiously in our country. We need God's power to heal our lands. That's it. It will not be healed without that. When those Puritans came over to America, they wrote a document called the Mayflower Compact. It was the first constitution in America. And they wanted to write down why they came. They came here, they said, having undertaken this voyage for the glory of God and the advancement of the Christian faith. They wanted a nation based on the simple precepts of God's word. Because they knew that was the key to success. That was the key to prosperity. That was the key to growing with families and cultures and civilization that would bless men, instead of putting a stranglehold on their liberties, which is what they were fleeing from in Europe. They knew that. It's in the documents. Yeah. The Declaration of Independence said that the simple truths were that we are created, that our Creator gave us rights, and government's job isn't to give rights or create us. Government's job is to secure rights. They codified that in our laws. This stuff is all there to be learned, number one, and number two, to get out of the salt shaker and apply it into your culture. So I hope you can join us tonight. If you can't tonight, we have church service here tomorrow at the Church of God Tidings at 7 p.m. We'll also be doing another service at 10 a.m. on Sunday morning. I'm right now speaking at the Scope Homeschool Conference at the William Jessup University tomorrow. I was there today. I'll be there tomorrow. And I am excited and I'm encouraged because there's a lot of people desiring to learn this message. We have created materials to help you teach others. We want to make this easy. We want to make it turnkey. Nobody needs another job. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. All the materials are done. So join Tammy as she teaches. Join the radio program as they teach. Come to the church and learn. And hey, listen, if you don't agree with any of this and you think I'm a nutcase and Tammy's crazy, I love it. Please come convince me that I'm a nutcase. Yeah, that's true. There may be aspects. You may find out we're more alike than you may realize. But we're not here to oppose. We want to get on the same page. And we want you to be on that same page. And we want a future for our child. I think we can all agree with that. So that's about all I have. We got to get ready for tonight's service.
Yeah, we got to get you out there. But thank you so much for doing
it.
this Facebook Live, and I hope people can join us. If this prompted some people maybe to head up here. We also want to let you know that I do teach the Constitution course twice a year. We're currently in the middle of one. We're about at lesson 9 of a 12 lesson program, and so it's a 12-week program. It begins every year in the month of April and September, and it's a 12-week program. This September, I'm going to be offering probably maybe some kind of a Facebook Live format or a YouTube format or just a Skype format, just to try and get more availability out there. So we'll be, now that we have our own personal media guy, Chris Starkey with One Eye Blind Media, he's going to help us accomplish these things. We'll figure something out, but we just want to make it as available as we can. If I need to teach it more often, I will. We have other courses. We have the Truth of America's Founding. It's a one-day seminar. We have the Sheriff and the Citizen seminar, which we just did, I think, in March, and we were lucky enough to have 2 of our sheriffs show up. So that was awesome. We have a Jury of the Duty, reverse of that, Duty of the Jury course that we'll be offering as well. So as I get requests, we'll get them set up and we'll get people educated and we'll push this forward. So come over if you can, and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
What about upcoming candidates?
Great night.
Upcoming candidates? What do you mean?
For the City Hall race.
Yes. So there was an idea flown out on the radio show. Actually, I think the show's going to be airing on Sunday. We did pre-record because we got Jake here now.
But it was on YouTube. So
yes, and it's on YouTube if you want to access it. But it'll be broadcast on Sunday's radio show for the Yuba Sutter Political Spotlight. And it was flown out there that we're thinking of doing the one-day seminar that's called The Truth of America's Founding, Your Heritage and Mine. And we're going to be inviting the local candidates to come attend that, like city council candidates, all the local candidates will fly it out there and see who's receptive in doing that, and see if they're as willing as the 2 sheriff candidates, Brandon Barnes and Jeff Pierce showed up to our Sheriff and the Citizen one-day course that's talked about the constitutional role of the sheriff. So hopefully we can get that rolling, and those people will be receptive to that information and want to show up for our seminar. We feed them lunch, so we give them a little bit of incentive to show up. But
now, wouldn't it be nice if those elected officials or people seeking the office swear an oath to uphold the Constitution? Wouldn't it be nice if they knew it? And that's what these materials that you're teaching does. It teaches them so that they can know it. And folks, they want your vote, they want your money, make them prove it. Tell them, hey, well, come with me to Tammy's class. You'll have a whole bunch of donors there, a whole bunch of voters. You'll get a lunch. We want to make sure that you really do believe in the Constitution and that you're willing to sit through a seminar and learn the Constitution. Because just saying I'm constitutional means nothing. Just saying that I'm conservative means nothing. It's all in your demonstration of that. So if you know it, it's great, but you got to apply it. And when you come around these classes and you prove to your constituency, or you bring a person who's running for office, let them prove to everybody that, yeah, I got some skin in this game. I want to sit through this, and I want to even sponsor one. That's why we develop these one-day courses. So I'm excited about that, folks. And what you all are doing here, this is a big thing. Thank you.
Yeah, you're more than welcome.
Awesome.
What I'm here for. It's what I do. All right. Thank you so much. I think we're
you
good.
guys.
Yeah, thanks. Have a good evening.